Hello and welcome to episode 16 of the Crimson Misery podcast. My name is Will Rainbolt. I hope you all are doing very, very well. Hope you all had a happy holidays, a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate, and also had a Happy New Year. It is now 2025. 2025. Crazy to me that I've been on this planet since 2001, and the new year has progressively just gotten more and more tedious, I guess, less impactful. It's just like, God, another year to make New Year's resolutions that I am pretty positive I almost certainly will not be able to keep most of them. But you can always try. And also, resolutions can happen at any time of the year. So I guess that's what I would say um, for people who are also feeling like they can't keep their New Year's resolutions intact for more than a month. But with that being said, if you all are new to this podcast, consider rating the show 5 stars on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you are listening on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment down below. I think you can also comment on stuff like Spotify, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. I've just been realizing that people have been leaving comments on different podcasts on Spotify. So if you want to do that, go for it. You can also email the pod at crimsonmiserypod@gmail.com. And let's just get right into it. There has been a lot going down since the last time I spoke with you all. It was, gosh, when was the last time I uploaded? December 23rd. So a lot has happened, a lot in the sports world in general. Um, yeah, I more college football playoff action, a lot of bowl games have been going on. We've seen the a lot of the food bowls like the Pop-Tart Bowl, which is just becoming a fan favorite for good reason. The mascots are incredibly fun to watch. And the game Miami and Iowa State was an incredible classic. Little bit of controversy with Cam Ward only playing in the first half against Iowa State. I mean, I think that's just a non-issue personally. Um, but a lot of people are saying, "Oh, he quit," or why was he playing at all if he was only gonna, play one half?" And I mean, at least he played, you know? I mean, a lot of players just skip bowl games. Um, so the fact that he did play anyway is just like, cool, again, I think that that's just such a non-issue for me. And you also had the Mayo Bowl with Minnesota and Virginia Tech, which had Flava Flav dressed as the Mayo mascot and dumping the mayonnaise all over PJ Fleck. Um, I can understand why that can be uncomfortable for a lot of people, and that can be kind of gross. But at the same time, it's like, okay, that was pretty funny. Especially because it's Flavor Flav. It's Public Enemy. What else do you want me to say? So, um, yeah, with that being said, I mean, the NFL playoffs are also starting very soon. We have week 18 that has had a couple games today to decide a lot of the AFC North. I mean, I think the AFC North is the only team in action today. It is Saturday. Um, yeah, it is Saturday. Um, January 4th. I'm getting my dates mixed up because I still think it's December for some reason. Um, but yeah, Baltimore defeated Cleveland 35 to 10 to win the AFC North, and then Cincinnati is up 7 to nothing on Pittsburgh in a must win for Cincinnati. They need to win, and Denver needs to lose. And then miraculously, the Cincinnati Bengals would make the playoffs. Something that would not have even imagined in like week 8 or week 9 because they looked done. And the fact that they're still alive in week 18 is pretty remarkable. Um, you also have Minnesota and Detroit on Sunday night. You have um, the NFC South race between the Falcons and Buccaneers. Buccaneers need to win. and they will be in. And if they lose, and if Atlanta wins against Carolina, then the Falcons will be NFC South champions. So yeah, again, Denver needs to lose against Kansas City, with the Carson Wentz led Kansas City Chiefs, uh, and they are in. But Cincinnati also needs to win tonight to stay alive at Pittsburgh. They're up 7-0. Pittsburgh has already clinched a playoff spot, but we shall see. Um, yeah, I think that's most of the big action that's going to be happening. Um, Yeah, well, I mean, Los Angeles already won the NFC West, so that game against the Seahawks does not matter anymore. So, I was going to say that game would have been interesting had, Washington not won against Atlanta, but at the same time, still quite a few pretty big games going on. So now let's transition to what this podcast is usually about, college basketball. One of the best stats I've seen uh, in recent years is AJ Store's 2024-25 season. He has not had an assist in 5 consecutive games. He has scored a total of 25 points in those five games. He's averaging 5 points per game for a guy who transferred from Wisconsin, looking for a better, uh, I guess, more opportunities, I suppose. But Kansas, much like last year, they just don't look all that great. I mean, they're not a bad basketball team, but they also um, are losing some games that they probably shouldn't be losing. Especially, I mean, against West Virginia at home. West Virginia is not a bad basketball team. I want to stress that right now. West Virginia is a team that is very possible that a lot of people need to start looking out for. And the reason why I say that, you obviously have Darian DeVries going from Drake to West Virginia in his first year as head coach, and his son Tucker, also former standout at Drake. He transferred over when his dad got hired at West Virginia, and right now he is what is their record? It's 11-2. They are 11-2 this year. They also just beat Oklahoma State. So they are looking like they could be one of the better teams in the Big 12. I certainly didn't expect that, but hey, I would be floored if they were to do well. They play Arizona next, which is a game I'm definitely looking out for. Maybe Arizona gets back on track, but I don't think so. I think West Virginia will win that game. I just don't think Arizona's all that good. I've already talked about on this podcast before the downfall of Caleb Love, and really just not, he's really just not been good, man. And Arizona in general just does not have a great vibe going for them right now. So I think West Virginia, uh, I think will end up winning that game and go to 12-2 now. So again, going back to Kansas for a second here. They just lost to West Virginia at home, 62-61. That was a surprising game. AJ Storr had no points in that game. Kansas is 2-3 in their last 5 games in that span. That AJ Storr does not have an assist. So I've been trying to remember times where a player that's like not necessarily a center going long droughts without an assist. I know he's not their primary point guard. Like Dajuan Harris is their point guard, but it's kind of crazy to me that AJ Storr still does not have any assists recently, and he's a gunslinger. This dude will shoot a lot, and he has taken a total of, if I can do my quick maths, 33 shots, and of those 33 shots, 9 of them have gone in. So it has not been great shooting for AJ Storr either. He is. Also 2 for his last 11 from downtown. That is also not great. So it's just been a rough sled for one AJ Store. And that's I obviously don't want to give up on a guy like AJ Store. Like he left Wisconsin for Kansas and should be getting it's a better situation than someone like Aiden Mahaney playing at UConn and basically getting relegated to an all-time bench role, which is not what AJ Store is currently experiencing, but he has not been playing well and might play himself into that type of role uh, if he doesn't end up improving, which is very tough to say. Like I'm not rooting against the guy, but it's just really, it's really odd to see this happen to a player that was very good at his original college, and then he transfers over, and it just does, it's not really working out as much as people thought. Um, and as the whole NIL and transfer portal quest continues to evolve, it'll be curious to see how much a lot of different transfers just don't end up working out. We're probably going to see lists of uh, transfer failures, and I'm not saying AJ Store will be that. There is plenty of time to improve, but only averaging 7.3 points um, and shooting 39% overall is definitely something that I think Bill Self expected a little bit more of. So definitely not all that it was hyped up to be. Um, yeah, so we also had I mean, I've gone at length about how good the SEC was in non-conference, and it's looking like it's going to be the absolute same case uh, for for the conference season because we had Florida putting up 100 points at Kentucky and losing in no overtimes. It was 106 to 100. Um, good God. So yeah, Walter Clayton continues to have a fantastic season. Had 33 points, 6 of 12 from three. Elijah Martin had 26, but for Kentucky, all five of their uh, all five of their starters were in double figures. Lamont Butler led the way in that department with 19, but then you had 23 points off the bench, off the fence. What? From Kobe Bria and 7 of 9 from three. This Kentucky team has a lot going right for them. Even though they only usually play about 8 guys, they're all really good. Even guys like Brandon Garrison, while he didn't have a great scoring game, he fouled out. It was still like he still provided something off the bench with 3 rebounds, had 3 assists. So guys like that, when you get guys coming off the bench who can still provide something, that's pretty good for Kentucky. And they're just super well balanced. I like the way they play so much more than the Calipari days. And you can say, well, Kentucky had games like this last year against Arkansas and against Georgia where they scored over 100 points. And while yes, that is true, there was still a lot of confusion about why Reed Shepherd wasn't starting, and what was the inconsistency that was Rob Dillingham. This team with guys like Otega Owe and Lamont Butler, Mari Williams, Andrew Carr, Jackson Robinson, they all you know what their roles are. And like you can make a case like yeah, Kobe Bria may be a starter on many other teams, but he at least is coming off the bench and knows his role very well. Last year, like Reed Shepherd didn't always know what his role was going to be, and that kind of led to some inconsistencies, and it especially led to their downfall in the NCAA tournament against Oakland. So now that Calipari's gone, and I will get to what Calipari did earlier today, or what his team did, but it just seems like they're so much more prepared. I mean, there's still question marks defensively, like it was a high-paced game, but it wasn't it wasn't always a pretty sight, but both Kentucky and Florida are two very powerful offensive teams. So both of these teams are going to be near the top of the SEC at the end of the year. Um, and I mean, it was a great game to kick off the year, and I think we're going to see more of this once once the college basketball season in conference play continues to go forward. And then speaking of John Calipari, his team, the 23rd ranked Arkansas Razorbacks, lost to the top ranked Tennessee Volunteers on the road 76 to 52. Fantastic. It was really not much of a fight. I mean, DJ Wagner had 17, Boogie Fland had 12. He got his, but really no one else did all that much. And then you look at Tennessee, and all but one starter, and that was Jemai Mashak. They were all in double figures. Chaz Lanier had a fantastic game with 29 points. Um, he is still like really, really good. Um, it is difficult to replace I want to stress this. It is super difficult to replace a guy like Dalton Knecht and still be number one in the country and still have a guy that is basically the replacement for Dalton Knecht from North Florida, Chaz Lanier, putting up pretty good numbers. And then you have an all do everything point guard and Zakai Ziegler. Igor Milicic is a stretch for uh, basically can do very, very much of everything. He can rebound. He can shoot the three. He had 18 rebounds this game. Pretty. That's pretty good. So for another double double, and yeah, I mean, and then Felix Hakpara, Ohio State transfer, had 10, and it's just a stabilizing piece down low. And so Tennessee, despite losing guys like Santiago Vescovi and Dalton Knecht and Jonas Adu, transfer to Arkansas, who did not have a great game. Yeah, no, it was Adu, who had only had 4 points. It's like, bro, what are you doing? Like this was supposed to be like your coming home party, and instead it's like, um, you get you get absolutely blanked. So yeah, Arkansas did not have a great matchup against Tennessee. I still expect Arkansas to still have a pretty good year in the conference, but against the number one Volunteers on the road, it's kind of like, whatever. It's not going to mean too much. Um, not a big surprise. Ole Miss defeated Georgia. Ole Miss lost to Memphis, who did actually recover from their game against Mississippi State. So they did beat Ole Miss. And or am I getting that? Or am I getting that turned around? I'm getting that turned around, right? They beat. Well, now I don't remember. Memphis played both. Yeah, okay. So no, Mississippi State defeated Memphis, and then Memphis came right back around and defeated Ole Miss. Yeah, that's right. So I had it right the first time. So they defeated Georgia. I think Georgia's going to be pretty solid, like mid-tier SEC, but that still means they're a decently good team. So, and then Ole Miss, um, with Matthew Morrell at 15, Jamin Brakefield at 15. So still some pretty good talent on Ole Miss. And you also have Mississippi State, speaking of which, defeated South Carolina, who's probably right now the worst team in the SEC, which is who are 10-4. So it's like take that with a grain of salt. Um, yeah, and Josh Hubbard at 21, Claudell Harris Jr. at 17, Sean Murphy at 12, Riley Kugel at 12. So yeah, Mississippi State is just loaded with so many players who get a lot of playing time and are productive. So that is a team to watch under Chris Jans. And right now, as I'm recording this, Texas A&M is losing at home to Texas. Um, I mean, it's still like that doesn't really surprise me, but again, Texas A&M can easily come back with guys like Wade Taylor and Henry Coleman, and that's I think. I mean, another. game I wanted to keep an eye on was the LSU Vanderbilt game. And if I can find it, where is it? Hello? I forgot the score. And that's oh my God, the Miami moves to 4-10 on the year. That's amazing. Um, in the SEC, it is where is it? This is a great way of doing a podcast, by the way. Um, God, where the hell are they? Well, there's an easy way of solving all of my issues here, and that would be just actually looking up the score. So Vanderbilt goes on the road and defeats the LSU Tigers 80-72. Mark Byington is 13-1 as Vanderbilt head coach. There you go. So Vanderbilt, um, AJ Hoggard, transfer from Michigan State, has continued to show up very clutch. I knew, yeah, I wanted to actually get the score right, but yeah, AJ Hoggard's been clutch for them, and I'm happy to see it. So LSU with Cam Carter and Jordan Sears, I know they're not going to be a bad team, and this is a learning opportunity. But Vanderbilt right now looks like the better team, so not necessarily a surprise. And then moving conferences now, um, and Michigan's currently playing USC. That's another game I was looking at. I want to like avoid talking about the ACC as possible because I think I know what's going to end up happening. I mean Duke. Well, before I get to Duke, Alabama 7-79. That's not much of a surprise. Um, Mark Sears at 22. That's yeah, again, not really a surprise since it was at home. But again, moving to the ACC, pretty much all you need to know is that Duke is 4-0, and there's a good chance that in this conference Duke might go undefeated. That's about that's about what I'm anticipating. So, Iowa State defeated Baylor, continuing to show why they're number 3 in the country and could possibly be a 1 seed. Defeated a pretty good Baylor team, who again has Jeremy Roach, VJ Edgecombe, Norchad Omir, and they ended up winning by 19 or 19 points. Kashawn Gilbert had 16, Milan Momcilovic had 15, Curtis Jones had 14. So Iowa State is very good, and they're going to be very good at home. Uh, and they've already made a Sweet 16 last year, so they have a lot of experience and they're gonna be really good. So just trust me on when I say that. Trust me, bro. Um, Houston had a bit of a bounce back game against BYU, 86-55. Um, Emmanuel Sharp at 18 uh, for the Houston Cougars, and then BYU only had one player in double figures, and it was not a starter. Uh, Trevin Cannell had 12, and that was in 16 minutes of playing time. Um, I did not realize Mewat Nog transferred to BYU. I did not know that. Oh, okay. Um, that's interesting. Former Rutgers player. Huh, that completely flew under my radar. I'm like sitting here in stunned silence. I'm like, I didn't realize he transferred, or maybe I did realize he transferred, but I didn't know to where he transferred to. Um, okay, well, you learn something new every day. Um, all right, good for him. Uh, Nebraska got a big win today against UCLA at home. They are just so good at home. Nebraska has one of the best home court advantages in all of college basketball, and I feel like it still needs to be talked about more because I don't think people realize how good of a home court advantage it is. Or maybe they do, but it's not. They may say like it's one of the best home courts in the Big Ten, or no, in the country. Like right now, they are so good at home, and it's ridiculous. This Nebraska team is quietly a really, really scary team, and I would not want to play them in March. You have guys like Bryce Williams, could easily go off for like 30 points, like he did against Indiana. You have Andrew Morgan coming off the bench with 12. You have Jawan Gary, who is still really, really good, who had 10 points, and it could also go off for 30 any game. And you just think about like a guy like Kaisei Tominaga, who was a fan favorite last year for not just Nebraska, but for any team. Like he graduates, um, uh, and they're still pretty good. So Fred Hoiberg has that team playing super, super well. And you know what? Good for Nebraska. I can't hate. I can't hate as an Indiana fan. Speaking of which, Indiana on Thursday defeated Rutgers. Um, uh, yeah, Ace Bailey had 39 points for Rutgers, but it was not enough. Dylan Harper did not play. Anthony Leal had a fantastic half-court shot uh, at halftime to beat the buzzer. I think that was to go up by 7. So he was like turning around, he was fading away, and he shot it, and it like it banked in, and it was one of the greatest shots I've ever seen. It was actually no, it was a little less than half court. It was like halfway between the 3-point line and half court, but it was still a very, very great shot to beat the buzzer. Um, Purdue went on the road and beat Minnesota. Not much of a surprise. My cousin, who is a Purdue fan, was telling me that, like, oh, we're gonna lose to Minnesota. And I said to him, no, you're not. Purdue will win. And Purdue won. So it's like, yeah, Minnesota is just not a very good basketball team. Dawson Garcia and Parker Fox are like the only guys on that team that you really need to know, and that's about it. And Purdue, who had 53 points in the second half, just really, really played with a lot of intensity. They did not look at this game, at least in the second half, like it was like a look ahead game. But yeah, I mean, they really played well, and they're still going to be a really good contender in the Big Ten. And speaking of which, Oregon got destroyed at home by Illinois 109 to 77. That was unreal to watch. And especially like I caught some of this game live. I went back and looked or I watched it a lot of the game, and I mean Oregon just looked bad at home for a top 10 team. Kaspers Yakuchonis at 16, Ben Hummerkaus at 18, Trey White at 20, Kylan Boswell at 15, Jake Davis at 12. Will Riley did not play very well, but again, it didn't matter because that it just like they destroyed Oregon in like every sense of the word destroyed. They went 16 of 29 from three. It was like everything they were throwing up went in. And this team is really, really deadly from outside. Um, Oregon just really did not have an answer. It looked like they were overwhelmed for so much of the game. And look, they're still my pick to win the Big Ten tournament. But yeah, it really once Illinois went on that run, I think it was like 20-3 or something. It was something like that. um, Illinois defeated Oregon with that run pretty much because they were only up by like uh, 7 at halftime. I want to say, yeah, they were up 7 at halftime, and they used that run to really springboard their way, and they outscored Oregon 64-39 in the second half. Like that's a final score in some games. Like that's unreal. So Illinois is a team to look out for. I think they're probably gonna move up to like 13th or 12th in the country after this. So yeah, good for Illinois, man. That is quite the win for them. And then Memphis defeated Florida Atlantic on the road. So after losing to Mississippi State, I think that game was definitely a wake-up call because they looked a lot better against not only Ole Miss but against Florida Atlantic. Um, they really looked a lot better. So yeah, Tyrese Hunter had 20, PJ Haggerty had 19, Colby Rogers with 11. So really, they're getting a lot of production out of their transfers. And again, barring a collapse like they had last year, they should be pretty good. Oh yeah, Dane Danger, 16 points. Good for Dane Danger. And they also went 10 of 18 from three. Florida Atlantic with 5 of 31. Ugh, ew. That's disgusting. That is a disgusting stat line. You should feel ashamed. And then, oh yeah, speaking of Arizona, they uh, they did bounce back against Cincinnati, 72 to 67. But again, Caleb Love only had 12 points. He went 3 of 15 from the floor. I think Cincinnati, again, they have talent, and I still think they're going to be pretty good in the Big 12. I am very skeptical that they're going to make some noise in the NCAA tournament. I'm really skeptical. Um, Especially losing at home to an Arizona team that's like easily beatable. It's like, oh, that's probably a game you shouldn't lose. Um, so yeah, anyway, like Trey Townsend only had 6 points. Like Arizona really didn't even play a great game. It's like Cincinnati just didn't play very well either, and Arizona was just able to capitalize. Um, yeah, it just really, really was not. It was really not a fun game to watch. I mean, Arizona did have like like a 20 point lead or something, um, but it's still. I mean, it just was not a very fun game to watch. And also Cincinnati commits a lot of turnovers. And watching this game, it was like, oh yeah, Cincinnati commits quite a few turnovers. Um, so uh, it's just not very fun to watch a lot of those teams. I don't know. Cincinnati, I felt like it was going to be a bit more interesting of a game, and especially because you're ranked and you're at home, but they just didn't come out with a lot of intensity, which is very interesting. Um, yeah. So yeah, that's that. Briefly, like touch upon some of the women's action that happened. Indiana lost at home today against UCLA, the number one team in the country. Wasn't really too surprised at that. God, Lauren Betts was just looked like m- like she was unstoppable. 25 points, 12 of 16 from the floor. It was impossible to stop her. And Indiana had no response. They only lost by 11, but it just wasn't fun to watch. And they just looked UCLA was faster, they were stronger, they were more physical, in pretty much every way. And Indiana just really could not do anything to stop it. And what I've noted, like Indiana just isn't on that level this year where they can compete with a lot of those faster teams. And you saw that. If you watch the game, they just looked so much more fragile and their confidence was shot whenever players like Betts or Kiki Rice or Gabriela Jaquez, they were just so much better than Indiana was in almost every single facet of the game, aside from free throw shooting, but like it didn't matter. It didn't matter, especially when Garzone had went 1 of 8 from three. I mean, she had 19 points, but it was a difficult 19 to watch. Um, yeah, it was not 4 of 21 from three. So like really neither team can shoot on a lot of nights. Neither the men's or the women's team. It just it's really it, it it's like there are those teams like UConn and USC and UCLA and in Texas and Notre Dame and South Carolina, obviously. Like there are those teams that are just so much better than almost everyone else. And unless you get like a red hot team that is able to pull off an upset, it just really it's really hard to watch those games where you just know that you're I don't. It happens more so in the women's game than in the men's game. It can still happen in the men's side, but like more so happens on the women's, where a team just like is able to coast so much more easily on talent, and they have a great game plan too. I'm not like trying to dis UCLA or anything for their game plan because they came in with a very good strategy, especially keeping Indiana off the 3-point line. And yeah, it just really was not a fun game to watch. So, um, and speaking of Texas, they defeated Oklahoma on the road. That was a really good game I wanted to point out. They won 80 to 73. Going on the road and beating a top 10 team is not an easy thing to do. So, um, in Texas was able to do it. So Jordan Lee led not all scores, but led Texas with 17 points off the bench. Um, with four went 4 or 5 from three, and she took five of the six threes that Texas took on this day. So they lived inside. And also lived at the free throw line, 18 of 22. There were a lot of free throws this game. It was a foul fest. Um, and Oklahoma went 19 of 26. Peyton Verhulst had 23 points, but again, like Garzone for Indiana, she went 1 of 11 from three, 2 of 16 overall from three. So had Oklahoma just buried a few more 3-pointers, like they probably would have won this game. So yeah, I mean, this is it's not I don't know if this game necessarily tells us a ton, but again, Texas is really good. Oklahoma will be fine. On the women's side, they are still so good, but at the same time, the Big 12 in the on the women's side is going to be a bloodbath this year, especially with TCU. Even though they're only winning right now by 6 at home against Cincinnati, like they'll still be really good. Kansas State defeated Texas Tech 77 to 57. And then West Virginia defeated BYU. Like these are teams that are going to be competing for the top four seeds, and especially um, for playing at home, where a lot of the home courts in the Big 12 are going to be a lot better, uh, a lot more energetic in a league like the Big 12. Like that's pretty important. So to keep winning these games against teams that you probably should beat, and BYU and Texas Tech on the women's side, it's like that's a recipe for continuing to do well. And yeah, I mean the so far teams like Kansas State and TCU and West Virginia, they're taking care of business, as Bachman Turner Overdrive once said, um, at home. So with that being said, I think that'll wrap it up for today's episode. Yeah, I'm glad to be back again. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday season. First episode of 2025 down, and I'm looking forward to doing a lot more. Finally, gonna get a routine in. It just feels like my again, it just feels like my whole schedule has been thrown off um because of the holiday season, and finally like just starting to know when the games are, and finally just getting into a rhythm of watching them more often instead of uh like watching them after the fact. I can finally start watching them live again, um which will be nice. So, and I will be able to provide hopefully a little more insight into the basketball games. So again, with that being said, thank you all so much for listening. I will see you all next time. Bye bye.